the threat from the likes of Russia and China has actually diminished over recent years in the High North because Putin's more focused on Ukraine. But of course, because Trump's had, made these threats against Greenland, everyone feels that they need to show Trump that Greenland is protected and the wider High North region has got enough European troops there to protect it.
Now, the Munich Security Conference opens amid the most strained transatlantic ties in decades. 16 former US ambassadors have warned President Trump the alliance is not a charity. Rows over trade and Greenland and Washington's tougher tone have rattled trust, and European leaders now quietly reassessing their long-term security. Let's get the assessment now of the Times defence editor Larisa Brown, who is in Munich. Morning, Larisa.
Good morning.
How significant an intervention is this of these 16 former US ambassadors, or is it just another chipping away at NATO?
I think it's significant in terms of the number of people that have come forward and also the seniority of these people. These are, top diplomats and former military chiefs. And I think they're sort of saying what a lot of people in Europe hoped somebody would point out to Trump, which is that actually NATO isn't a charity and it isn't just a one-way strategic partnership. The Americans actually benefit an awful lot from being in NATO. US taxpayers save a lot of money. The US, America's security is better and more secure because of those partnerships, and so I think those comments have been very welcome by the Europeans today.
Is there a sense they're being taken on board by the American administration?
Oh, that's another question, isn't it? I think yesterday there was the defence ministers meeting in Brussels, and Elbridge Colby, who is Trump's main military strategist, came along instead of Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of State for War, and he made a really good speech, and he said that NATO should be based on partnership rather than dependency. And he was a little bit more diplomatic than Hegseth has been and other members of the US administration. And I think there is a genuine feeling now that Europeans accept that they do need to do more of the heavy lifting, that the situation at the moment can't go on. They can't rely on America. And I think that a lot of discussions today will be centred upon the Europeans and the likes of Tilley and Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer coming together with their counterparts to discuss ways that they can beef up defence partnerships and security without relying on the Americans.
Talk to us about the significance of this meeting as a whole and its aims. I mean, clearly there's that element we've just talked about. Obviously also the relationship with the US going forward, particularly when you're thinking about things like Greenland and trade.
It's a really significant meeting. It happens it's over 3 days. I've been coming here for years now, back to the time of when Sir Michael Fallon was Defence Secretary. And over the years, you've had bigger names, more significant figures coming here. And there's a lot of meetings that happen on the sidelines. And these are meetings that we will never be able to report because they're secret, basically. And so it's not only deemed so significant because of the public statements that are made, but also all of the deals that are done behind the scenes.
So stuff does actually get done, because that was going to be one of my questions.
Yes, I think that what happens is there's lots of agreements, not necessarily official agreements, but they pave the way for such agreements in meetings that happen on the sidelines. It's really hard to actually get into the hotel these days because obviously everybody that's there are extremely senior figures. You've got lots of people coming from the likes of NATO and other partnerships. And yes, there is a feeling that this is a good place because instead of just having bilats, you've got an opportunity to meet with lots of different people from all around the world to discuss the future security.
To focus on Greenland for a moment, it's the first security conference since the issue of Greenland and Trump's desire to take it over, although suggestions being that it's not going to be by force. Is there a sense that the Europeans are still fearful of that? Do they feel that the immediate threat has gone away? What is their approach at this meeting to kind of countering that and protecting Greenland?
There's definitely concern still about Greenland. I think what the Europeans are trying to do is really emphasise their commitment to the High North and Arctic security. And we've had a lot of that at the Defence Ministers meeting in Brussels this week, but we're expecting more conversations about how we bolster security in the High North as a result of pressure from Trump. I think in reality, some of the experts that I speak to say that the threat from the likes of Russia and China has actually diminished over recent years in the High North because Putin's more focused on Ukraine. But of course, because Trump's had made these threats against Greenland, everyone feels that they need to show Trump that Greenland is protected and the wider High North region has got enough European troops there to protect it.
You mentioned Ukraine. Is there much progress being made?
Well, President Zelensky's here. There's discussions about the defence help for Ukraine, sending more weapons and more partnerships in terms of defence collaborations. But do I think that we're actually going to get a deal? I think we're still really, in reality, in the same position we were a long time ago.
Do you think the US is still fully engaged in Ukraine, or is Trump starting to lose interest? And I'm thinking particularly the backdrop of things like conversations with Iran and issues there.
Well, I mean, Trump obviously wants there to be a peace deal. We know that he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants Zelensky and Putin to come to the table and agree some sort of framework. I don't think he will give up on that, but I think there's a lot more emphasis on the Europeans doing the heavy lifting in terms of sending the right equipment, spending more on Ukraine, and just the sheer fact that Hegseth wasn't here at the defence ministerial meeting this week just shows that the Americans really want the Europeans to dealing with helping Ukraine on the battlefield.
I want to ask you as well, before I let you go, Larisa, about your reporting about Angus Lapsley, Britain's ambassador to Nato. For people who haven't had the chance yet to read your article, just bring us up to date with some of the concerns that have been raised about him.
Well, people will probably remember Angus Lapsley for what he did a few years ago when he left secret documents at a bus stop in Kent. And these were documents that had the details of special forces and their locations in places like Afghanistan. He then was promoted after an investigation on all of this, and he's now currently our ambassador to NATO. But we've revealed this week how he had this relationship in NATO, where with an Italian intern who was nearly half his age, and this led NATO to review the situational relationships to see if he'd broken any rules. He hadn't broken any rules because you are allowed to have a relationship with a subordinate. She was his assistant at the time and worked under him. But then he then was later promoted to ambassador, and Caroline Wilson, who's the incoming EU ambassador to Brussels, isn't happy with the situation of him living in a British residence with the woman. She thinks it's inappropriate use of the residence. And so there's questions over what happens next and where he lives with this woman. And we've also revealed more today, which shows that Gavin Williamson was against Lapsley's promotion a few years ago into the MOD because he didn't think he was the right fit for the role. But he came under pressure from civil servants to promote him, including Sir Stephen Lovegrove, who went to school with Angus Lapsley.
Larisa, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much. That is the Times defence editor, Larisa Brown, speaking to us live from Munich, where the Munich Security Conference gets underway today. If you want to read more of Larisa's contributions, you can do it with your digital subscription at thetimes.com.